Hello and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode I'll be discussing Disney's 2022 mixed animation and live action comedy Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers as directed by Akiva Schaffer. The movie is tipped as a continuation of the original short-lived Disney cartoon series of the same name, Chip and Dale, The Rescue Rangers, which aired originally between 1989 and 1990. However, moreover, the film actually serves to place us into a universe where toons such as Chip and Dale are actors themselves in TV series and movies along the way, such as Rescue Rangers, in very, very much the same way as the 1988 feature Who Framed Roger Rabbit. All being very kind of metaphysical in nature, which does end up being quite kind of an abstract and unexpected way of revisiting a kind of a number of much beloved Disney classics. We get to kind of visit the origins of Chip and Dale's friendship, their first day at school, how they kind of rose to fame, their with their self-titled show, and how, and in an instant, they were left out in the cold when then it was, abruptly cancelled, as, Hollywood often does. Chip, as voiced by John Mulaney, went on to become a successful insurance salesman. Dale, as voiced by Andy Samberg, on the other hand, kind of never let go of the dream, clinging on to the Rescue Rangers with every last sliver he could, kind of circling the convention circuit with all of the other kind of forgotten and misaligned toons. However, when one of their friends, Monterey Jack, as voiced by Eric Bana, is kidnapped by a tyrant known as Sweet Pete for failing to pay off his cheese debt, as you do, for fear of kind of being redeveloped to play parts in cheap knockoff versions of popular movies, both Chip and Dale reunite to put their differences aside, to go on a mission that will call on all of their cunning and history, playing the parts that they did in that classic, if now all but forgotten, kind of series of intrigue, mystery and suspense, becoming the very Rescue Rangers they once played. So, firstly, I must say, the mix of live action and animation used in this film was quite a nice treat to kind of see from the offset. Kind of once I'd realised and kind of got used to the fact that this wasn't technically a sequel to the original cartoon TV series. Indeed, the animation itself is quite an engaging focal point. Not only does it kind of capture quite the eclectic mix of animation styles from throughout the decades, from hand-drawn characters right through to CGI, almost demonstrated with Chip and Dale themselves kind of being on both sides of that coin. Kind of showing pretty much, animation's evolution, if you like, including elements from eras probably best left forgotten, but amusing nonetheless. It is quite the showcase in that respect, paying direct homage to the world of animation as a whole in a very warm, endearing and winsome way. My interest certainly kind of peaked more when I realised that in theory, although I don't actually think this has been confirmed, I've tried to look it up, I can't find anybody saying that it is, this was a spiritual sequel to the absolute classic Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We even have a cameo from the aforementioned long-eared rabbit, along with a kind of blink and you miss it reference to dip, which I was squealing when I saw that, which was the poison used against toons in Roger Rabbit. So there was plenty of references to suggest this was in the same universe. I had certainly been put off at the start when I realised it wasn't a direct sequel to Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers TV series. That's what I was kind of hoping for, which was one of my kind of firm favourites growing up, at least for that year it was out. I thought there was more episodes than they made, but nonetheless, I was all told a tad disappointed, I'm not going to lie, but then kind of been engrossed within all of the various animation styles, the meta and characters on display somehow did kind of more than make up for it in the long run. And all told, it was very nostalgic towards the series in general, with lots of nods and throwbacks to many classic episodes, memorabilia, and even the classic NES game, which certainly did quell up a few emotions or two seeing all of this wonderfully recreated on screen in all its kind of magnificent glory. Now, would I have liked to have kicked back and watched an extended version of the original show? Well, yes, absolutely. I thought it was an odd tack to take with the direction of this movie, but it did, in the end, end up being quite the kind of the fun diversion, all told. And although it didn't really feel like a Rescue Rangers movie for the most part, it did take us on quite a bit of an adventure, which utilised many elements of the show and its characters. If, in fact, it had a few really nice touches throughout in this sense, utilising as many original actors, actresses and animators as possible from the original studios who drew the original characters. It kind of really gave the movie, from that perspective, an air of authenticity and a real kind of admiration and love for the craft. Even if the voices and the roles ended up being taken over by other more contemporary artists, and I get why they did that in the main, they still found time to acknowledge their roots, you know, and the characters' origins, which again demonstrated that they simply went in it just for a few cheap gags and simple, simply nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It was certainly interesting to see how such a world as that we had kind of last seen in Roger Rabbit may have kind of evolved over time as people and tunes kind of become more integrated. And this was certainly an interestingly enjoyable slant. One thing you can't fail to notice when watching this is the crazy, and I do mean crazy, amount of meta references hidden in just about every scene possible, from just about every franchise and studio imaginable. There is not one single minute that goes by or a scene left untouched. No franchise is safe, although everything is done in the best possible taste and with the most love, and I must admit, the most love possible for each. With each reference kind of adding value in its own little way, even if but for laughs, you know, to the overall kind of experience. Even ugly Sonic gets his moment here, and they most certainly got their money's worth out of Seth Rogen. If you like that kind of thing, the metaverse and all the rest of it, that kind of thing, then you will absolutely get a kick out of this movie for absolute sure, even if you are not exactly fans of Chip and Dale. It is an absolute cavalcade of animation and characters from across the breadth of Hollywood, not just those from the House of Mouse, but also others such as My Little Pony, Transformers, South Park, in a Disney movie, South Park, and indeed many, many more, all getting the Chip and Dale treatment. Some of the best moments are indeed when some of Disney's best beloved characters are interacting with some of those from the other studios, and it was actually nice to see that Disney didn't always have the upper hand, nor even the most centred of moral compasses, even going as far as to take their fabled and iconic Main Street down a bit of a darker, more sinister turn. It is all in all a very, very self-observant, most definitely, and very self-aware movie that lives squarely in its own moment. It's obvious from the outset that somebody's had a lot of fun making this, and for the most part it is pretty well engineered to please. I don't think personally that it has the same kind of quality as Who Framed Roger Rabbit to really kind of pass itself off as iconic. It can be a little too clumsy at times and does feel overly saturated, full of warm nostalgia, but crammed to the brim nonetheless. As such, I think the overall story does kind of suffer somewhat. It's nothing too ingenious, playing mostly as a result of its characters than anything else. The trouble is, in the main, is that there is so much extra going on in the background. It really does kind of end up being more or less the only reason that you continue to watch the movie. Without the meta, once the jokes dry up, the movie does kind of find itself lulling for a bit. Overall, this was a fun and fancy-free movie, combining many elements, eras and styles of animation over the years, accumulating in quite the showcase of characters, animators and studios from across the breadth and width of Hollywood and further beyond through the golden age of TV and movies. It certainly more than captures a nostalgic level and, this nostalgic beat. I'm sure there's something here from most decades many will resonate with, and in that there is some great fun to be had along the way and more than a couple of hilarious moments. But at the end of the day, it didn't really feel all too much like the Rescue Rangers. It was almost like we were on the outside looking in, which was as endearing as much of the retro vision was in this respect. I just kind of felt like it might be found lacking for those kind of looking to recapture and revisit Rescue Rangers mania, if indeed that was a thing. It is, however, most certainly a simple bit of light relief, and it still holds a brilliantly cartoonish quality about it. And indeed, the mix of live action and animation is a true delight. And whilst not being quite on the same level as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it still offers enough of a diversion to keep things entertaining. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you at SciFirst MovieTalk, and definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.